says you will be live now.
Yeah, just wait
Until
a little bit because there's a little bit of a lag.
Who's actually going to do like the welcome? Oh, it's never mind. We'll just do it.
The broadcast has started. You are live now.
All right. Should I do the welcome?
Either way, Shayna, go ahead.
All right. So welcome everyone. My name is Shanna Sellers, and I work for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Joining me today is Sarah Sullivan, who also works for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and we also have Lori Sutter, who works for the Tohono O'odham Nation. And I feel like I may have left a word out, and I apologize. We're here today to talk about the lead awareness in Indian country, keeping our children healthy. Just to kind of give a quick overview, and we're actually going to start off with Lori, just giving us some background and talking a little bit about the development of the curriculum as well. So, to you, Lori.
Why, good morning. Can you advance the slide?
Yes, there we go.
Okay, there we go. I wasn't sure if I would. I wasn't sure if I would be able to join with video because sometimes I have technical issues. But anyway, good morning from Arizona. I'm Lori Suter, and I'm the Mineral Resources Administrator for the Tohono O'odham Nation's Natural Resources Department. I've served with the Tohono O'odham Nation since 2008. In various environmental capacities, which include housing and also the Environmental Protection Office for a number of years before taking this position in 2014. The lead awareness in Indian country, keeping our children healthy curriculum. This curriculum was designed to raise awareness and educate tribal communities about childhood lead exposures it was designed in conjunction with over 200 tribal representatives from 80 different tribes. And those include, the Oneida Community Health and Environmental Health Safety and Land Management Programs, the Shoshone-Bannock tribes, the 8 Northern Indian Pueblo Council, as well as was piloted in Region 5 and in Region 6, and over 200 tribal members contributed to this curriculum. And it was in partnership with the US EPA, the National Tribal Science Council, and the National Tribal Toxics Council. And I've been a member of the National Tribal Toxics Council since 2016 and found out about this particular curriculum's development when it first started and have been honored to be a part of the process. Also, the Indian Health Service reviewed and provided input on the curriculum, and they really praised the nutrition section associated with the curriculum. Several pilot programs were hosted and implemented in Indian country throughout the United States, and this resource was developed by tribal people for tribal people. However, this curriculum is also highly adaptable for all and any potentially impacted communities in the United States. A little bit about lead. Lead is in the environment and it persists. There are lots of potential sources, and these include lead dust, lead in yards and playground areas, lead in drinking water and in water pipes, lead in older homes and in lead-based paints, lead in children's toys, and lead in lipstick and some other cosmetics. As the Mineral Resources Administrator of the Tohono O'odham Nation, I would be remiss in my duties not to mention that hard rock lead mining has disproportionately impacted the environment, health, and culture of Native communities. Throughout history, metallic minerals, including silver, lead, and zinc, have been mined on and near the Tohono O'odham Nation in southern Arizona. Nearly 2 million acres of Indian lands are subject to mineral leases administered by the U.S. Department of Interior. Still, in the early 1900s, the largest lead and zinc ore deposit in the United States were found in northeastern Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas, and western Missouri in what is known as the Tri-State Mining District. The Tar Creek historically had one of the deepest reservoirs of lead zinc ore in the world and is now a Superfund site with no clearly defined boundaries, impacting 119 river miles within those states and 8 tribal areas impacted as well. Lead, zinc, and silver mines are also historically associated with pollution of the Idaho's Silver Valley, and that's adjacent to the Coeur d'Alene and the Nez Perce reservations. These are but a few of the examples of lead and zinc mining within the boundaries of the United States that do impact or are close to Indian lands. According to the 2020 U.S. Census Bureau, the current total population of Native Americans, 574 federally recognized sovereign nations in the United States. There's about 7 million people total. Impacts on air, water, fish, and wildlife are disproportionately impacted, and Native Americans, more than any other group of people, because they still practice traditional ways of life and sustenance lifestyles, are impacted more than others. Native Americans living on reservation lands live in one place their entire lives and for many generations, which compounds potential exposure to both elders and children. There's no safe level of lead in bloods that's known. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization, yet more than 500,000 children ages 1 to 5 in the U.S. have tested blood levels that are high enough to damage their health. And even with treatment, lead poisoning can permanently affect a child's development. With all that said and done, the Lead Awareness in Indian Country, Keeping Our Children Healthy curriculum is designed to be a user-friendly tool to educate tribal communities about lead exposure and to promote in-home activities to reduce and or promote potential exposure to lead. And it provides a lot of technical information, as well as it encourages the inclusion of local knowledge, culture, and food sources. The curriculum is flexible and can be adapted to as simple as a brown bag lunch learning session, or you could use it for an entire week of training. Or whatever best serves educating your community. My favorite part is besides the flexibility and being able to adapt it to your own reservation's needs, are the kids' activity sheets, which I tested out on my grandkids, and we had a lot of fun filling in the various doing the puzzles and the coloring activities and other such. And oh golly, my grandkids learned a lot. So with all that said and done, and without further ado, presentation back over to our US EPA representatives. And please introduce the curriculum. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you so much, Lori, for sharing your experience and all of that wonderful information. My name is Sarah Sullivan. I'm the Children's Environmental Health and Healthy Schools Coordinator for EPA Region 9. In our discussion today, our goal for today is to discuss the curriculum's purpose and background, give a highlight of the materials, including giving a quick overview of each of the modules, and we'll do a quick walkthrough of the actions to reduce potential lead exposure infographic, which is a key tool from the curriculum. We'll then go through the recommended steps to prepare and show an example of one way to prepare for Module 3. And we'll share some teaching strategies and then answer any questions that you have. So the purpose of the curriculum is to raise awareness in tribal communities about childhood lead exposure, expand understanding of lead's potential impacts on children's health and cultural practices, and encourage actions that can be taken to reduce or prevent childhood lead exposure. The curriculum is a user-friendly tool to educate tribal communities about lead exposure and promote in-home activities that participants can do to reduce and or prevent potential exposure. The curriculum is designed to balance diverse community background, technical information, and local knowledge, giving instructors flexibility to plan and deliver messages within each structured module. There are two different target audiences for the curriculum. The first is instructors, which are community leaders with experience educating and training members of their tribal community. Instructors do not need to be experts in lead or lead exposure. The curriculum will provide you the resources and information to be familiar with the topic and to execute the curriculum. Examples of potential instructors include teachers, outreach specialists, educators, environmental staff, social workers, community health workers, and youth leaders. The second target audience are participants. The curriculum can serve a broad audience of community members who interact with children, which includes parents, caregivers, grandparents, tribal leaders, child care workers, healthcare providers, youth ages 12 and up, and anyone interested in learning more about lead and protecting children. Lori talked about this a little bit, but members of the two councils and EPA staff formed a working group to take action to reduce childhood lead exposure. This collaboration became a tribal-driven, EPA-partnered approach. During the development of the curriculum, the working group worked with over 200 tribal representatives from approximately 80 different tribes and tribal organizations. These partners participated in discussion sessions and pilots, reviewed drafts, shared stories, and evaluated key messages and drafted content. We want to thank our tribal partners who hosted several pilots of the curriculum, during which they conducted each of the modules you'll learn about today. Tribes have tested this curriculum, and we're confident that you can use these materials in a manner that works best for your community. All of the curriculum materials can be downloaded as individual files from EPA's website. There's also a curriculum guidebook, which is a PDF that includes all module materials except the presentation slides. Some of the materials included in the curriculum are a guide to using the curriculum, which gives an overview of the materials and guidance on how to prepare and present the information. Then 4 modules, which the curriculum is comprised of, and the modules are designed to be delivered sequentially, but the modules may be used individually or in a different order. It's recommended to include and start with Module 1, which is Understanding Lead, since it's an introduction to the topic and contains information that is covered in more detail in the subsequent modules. Each module consists of a lesson plan, worksheet, key messages, presentation slides, and kids activity sheet to facilitate interactive sessions with both youth and adult participants, which I'll show in just a moment. There are also 4 appendices included at the end of the curriculum to provide instructors additional information to assist them in preparing and presenting the information. This includes Appendix A, foods that contain calcium, iron, and vitamin C, which is a table of over 150 foods known to contain calcium, iron, and/or vitamin C. Module 1, Understanding Lead, educates participants on potential sources of lead exposure and lead's impacts and health effects on humans, wildlife, the environment, and cultural practices. Module 1 empowers participants with practical actions they can take to reduce potential lead exposure to lead, By the end of Module 1, participants will recognize potential sources of lead exposure. These include some you may be familiar with, such as lead paint in homes built before 1978 and water from lead pipes, as well as some less common sources. Laura mentioned a few of these as well, such as antiques and older toys, imported makeup, jewelry, and other products, soil, ammunition, and fishing sinkers. By the end of Module 1, participants will also understand impacts and effects of lead exposure. Children exposed to lead may have both short and long-term health impacts. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, no safe blood level in children has been identified. So no level of lead in the blood is safe. Even small amounts of lead in the blood in children can result in behavior and learning problems, lower IQ and hyperactivity, slowed growth, hearing problems, and anemia, just as some examples. Additional learning from the Module 1 includes simple actions to reduce lead exposure and knowing the importance of testing children for elevated blood lead levels. That's the only way to know if a child has elevated blood lead levels is to get their blood tested. They may not show any kind of symptoms. Module 2, Effective Cleaning Techniques, explains and demonstrates cleaning techniques recommended to reduce household lead dust and potential lead exposure in the home. The cleaning techniques can be performed by any person and can be done with materials they already have, like a mop, cloth bucket, and an all-purpose cleaner. By the end of Module 2, participants will understand the importance of proper cleaning techniques to prevent exposure to lead, learn about lead dust, recognize potential lead dust traps in the home, know which materials are recommended to clean lead dust, and identify cleaning techniques that are most effective in reducing lead dust. Module 3, which we'll go a little bit more in depth into, is personal hygiene and nutrition, which focuses on how good personal hygiene habits and healthy nutritional practices may assist in reducing the absorption of lead in a child's body. This module includes discussions on the benefits that personal hygiene, such as consistent hand washing, and good nutritional practices, such as feeding children healthy foods that contain calcium, iron, and vitamin C, can have to help reduce potential exposure to lead. By the end of Module 3, participants will learn specific personal hygiene techniques that help reduce potential childhood lead exposure, identify foods that contain calcium, iron, and vitamin C, and understand nutritional practices and foods that may limit the absorption of lead. The last module, Module 4, is hiring certified lead professionals, and it informs participants on what to do if a home, childcare facility, or preschool built before 1978 contains lead-based paint. This module discusses the need to hire certified lead professionals and the differences between a lead-based paint inspection and a lead-based paint risk assessment. By the end of Module 4, participants will understand the difference between a lead-based paint inspection and a lead-based paint risk assessment, learn that renovation, repair, or painting, which we abbreviate to RRP, jobs in a pre-1978 home with lead-based paint creates lead dust, recognize the difference between lead abatement and renovation, repair, and painting projects, and understand what must be done by lead-safe certified firms when conducting lead renovation activities. As mentioned earlier, each module has a lesson plan, worksheet, key messages, kids activity sheet, and presentation slides. The slides directly correlate to the lesson plan content. The lesson plans provide a detailed step-by-step guide for instructors on how to present the information included within each module, such as background information, resources, and examples. The worksheet is an interactive tool which facilitates discussion and reviews significant concepts covered during sessions. It also helps participants become familiar with information presented and includes various in-session exercises and questions. All of the worksheets have different types of interactive exercises to keep participants involved and engaged. The instructor notes will tell you when and how to use the worksheets. Each module has key messages, which summarize the main points covered during the session. The key messages are extra handouts that highlight preventative actions participants can take in their own homes to reduce their family's potential exposure to lead, are meant for participants to take home and reference later, and can be handed out with the worksheet or at the end of the presentation. Each module also has another supplemental take-home resource built specifically for kids in elementary school with puzzles, games, and coloring. The kids' activity sheets contain concepts covered in each module and are easy to understand. Participants can share with their children, or instructors may find uses for this for their community needs. The Actions to Reduce Potential Lead Exposure infographic is a visual aid designed to show participants 8 actions they can start taking to lower and prevent their family's potential exposure to lead. The curriculum is centered around these 8 actions. They are highlighted and discussed throughout the curriculum. The infographic is introduced at the beginning of Module 1, providing participants with ideas and advice before diving into the detailed discussions about potential sources and impacts and effects of lead exposure. This is done to aid in lowering participants' anxiety due to the amount of information that's going to be discussed in Module 1. Let's go through the 8 actions on the infographic that is introduced at the beginning of Module 1. The first, clean your home once a week using a clean, wet, or damp cloth, sponge, or mop to minimize dust which may contain lead. The second, eat a well-balanced diet with foods high in calcium, iron, and vitamin C to help reduce the absorption of lead. Third, use soap and water, warm or cold, to wash children's hands several times a day, especially after playing outside or with animals. 4, play in grass and dirt not contaminated with lead and use designated picnic, camping, and hiking areas. 5, hire a certified lead professional when renovation, repair, or painting will disturb painted surfaces in a home built before 1978. Keep families out of the work area. 6, change and wash clothes, remove shoes, and shower to avoid tracking lead into the home from soil, work sites, or hobbies. 7, wash daily any items your child uses regularly, such as pacifiers and toys, to minimize exposure to dust, which may contain lead. And 8, flush your home's pipes by running your tap, taking a shower, or doing a load of laundry or dishes before drinking or cooking. These are just a few of the actions we can take to reduce our potential exposure to lead. Throughout Module 1 and the other modules in the curriculum, these actions are revisited and continue to learn more actions to reduce potential lead exposure. I'm going to turn it over to Shayna.
Thanks, Sarah. And of course, thanks, Lori. So we just spent time, Lori did this wonderful introduction as to why this curriculum exists, how it came to be. And then Sarah just walked us through what's included. And so now I wanted to kind of switch a little bit and talk about how to prepare, how to use this resource. And so I'm going to go do some general steps and then use Module 3, which is our favorite module, or at least my favorite, to kind of talk a little bit about what specifically you might want to do. And so in order to prepare yourself to present these sessions in your community, there are several steps that are recommended to help you prepare. That first one is just preview all of the materials. That's the lesson plan, the presentation slides, worksheets, key messages, kids' activity sheets, appendices. And then within the lesson plan, review the instructor preparation section. And think of that section as your checklist on what to do to get ready for each of the modules. Also, as you're reviewing that material, think about who should your partners be. So who can help you? Who can also be presenting information with you? Who can you learn from? Who might be willing to provide resources, or even just be in the room to help answer questions that you weren't comfortable answering. I wouldn't be comfortable answering many questions related to health and blood lead tests, and so I might want to find someone from community health. And then also gather local information. You know what's going on in your community. take that local information and insert it into the curriculum so you're discussing relevant issues. You know the current events, ongoing issues within your own community. And so find ways that these sessions can benefit the community's overall needs. And one thing that we really, the entire working group, as this was being developed, the idea was that this wasn't meant to be a static thing. Modify the curriculum so that you're best communicating to your audience. And something that's very important is think about subsistence activities and how that might be important when presenting the modules. Think about hunting, fishing, and gathering activities and how to address and discuss those in addition to the stories and examples that are already included in the modules. So some examples from Module 1, there is a story about gathering water potatoes in areas known to have lead contamination and how one tribe removes the skin to reduce exposure. There's also the story of how a child was found to have elevated blood lead levels that was the result of helping their father make fishing equipment. And that story is to highlight the idea of switching to lead-free sinkers to eliminate that source of lead exposure. Also, many tribes are activating lead-free hunting programs. Does your tribe have a program? Does your tribe have, I know there's there are several tribes who have lead-free subsistence programs. So focusing on hunting and fishing all at the same time. And take time to think through relevant activities so you're making sure that these modules are discussing the information relevant to your tribe, relevant to your community. And of course, just gather whatever materials you're going to need to implement the modules, for the demonstrations, for the optional activities. And so I just wanted to focus on one of the steps that we think that is important when getting prepared for Module 3. And that involves compiling a list of your tribal community's local and traditional foods, snacks, and meals not listed in the Module 3 worksheet. So the Module 3 worksheet has a table, and in the Module 3 PowerPoint slides, you'll also see that there's a table, and I'm going to show it in just a second, of general foods. This is foods we know contain calcium, iron, and vitamin C that you can find in most grocery stores. And so in order to make this relevant to your participants, and since we know that specific nutritional choices we make are very crucial for our families and especially our children, in Module 3, it discusses eating this variety of foods that give children the vitamins and minerals they need to grow up healthy. And when children do not have enough calcium or iron in their bodies may absorb lead instead of those nutrients. And so thus the focus of the nutrition section of Module 3 really is about learning about and discussing foods, snacks, and meals that contain calcium, iron, or vitamin C. And so from the checklist in the Module 3 instructor preparation section, one of those recommendations is, after you've looked through all the foods listed throughout the entire lesson plan, and you've thought to yourself, what isn't mentioned that I ate growing up, or that is a traditional food for my community, then start contacting tribal leaders and elders, other staff that you work with, and other community members to help you compile this list. And you'll notice that, and sometimes some things get a little general. So we might just say nuts. And if for you, let's say instead of just nuts in general, you might want to put a specific nut like pecan, since we weren't able to list all nuts. Add specific fish, since the list doesn't include all types of fish. And so what I want to do is just show you, this is the foods that may help reduce the absorption of lead table that's found in the Module 3 worksheet and in the Module 3 presentation slides. Foods here are listed by the nutrient they contain the most of, calcium, iron, or vitamin C. Many of the foods that are listed here actually do contain more than one nutrient. And so the idea is, take a moment, look through the foods listed in the table, and just think to yourself, are these foods that are eaten in our community? What are the foods out of this general foods found at most grocery stores, not all, that I want to highlight? And so then what you want to do is fill in the blank table that's in the PowerPoint presentation. So we had that general foods list. Now, what are your local and traditional foods? So once you have that list, the foods, then use Appendix A, which has a table of 150 foods, to see if the foods you came up with, are they listed? And also, if you have foods that aren't in that table, there are many that aren't included in the table that could have been, and we're working on an additional resource. Go to Appendix D, where we have our supplemental resources, and there's several resources listed that can help you look up foods to see if they contain calcium, iron, and vitamin C. The one that I have found to be the most useful, not the best, but the most useful, has the most number of foods, is USDA has a resource that actually is listed at the top of Appendix A that you can use. And then the idea is to fill in this blank table and fill it in however you want. It could be, you could do that same thing where it's just foods not on the general food slide, just additional ones, put them in their column of calcium, iron, and vitamin C, or do a mix of the foods from that first table and additional foods that you have found that is eaten locally, that are those traditional foods, and put it here. Create a table that works for you, that's going to work for your participants. And so I wanted to share one. The working group filled in the blank spaces, and it's a sample, and it's not for any community in particular. We just went through and picked out foods from the Appendix A, not listed in that first table in the general food slide, and then just did some research to see what they can contain the most of by percent daily value. And as I said, fill this out however you want, and so that it works for you and it works for your participants. And I can't see, are there any questions so far about the curriculum, or even specifically related to this?
I'm not seeing any yet. Heidi, I missed a question on a session yesterday, so if you could scan too, that would be super helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I don't see any yet, but maybe our audience can take a minute to put in some questions, and there's like a 30-second delay on the chat, so we'll wait a little bit.
Awesome.
I was curious though if, because you mentioned that there are some tribes that have developed lead-free hunting programs, and it would be great if we could get a list of those tribes so that if your tribe has something similar and you don't want to recreate the wheel, maybe you could contact that tribe and get their
Yes.
template.
I'm not going to be able to remember them all off the top of my head. A really great resource is a biologist named David Moen, Moen. He works for the Nez Perce tribe, and he actually helped us draft a lot of the content related to hunting and fishing. I can go and find his contact information and share it with whoever it would make sense. So the Nez Perce tribe has a hunter, Stuart. I'm not going to remember the name. It's in the module 1 lesson plan. So the Nez Perce tribe, they did a regional dialogue, and they have a stewardship program. I think it's hunter. I don't want to butcher it. The Hopi tribe, my understanding is Navajo Nation, the Menominee tribe, the Flathead Indian Reservation. I'm not going to get all the names correct. If you actually, let's see, I can. Okay, I'm going to try and actually pull it up right now from a Word document. And I will just copy and paste the content from the lesson plan. And the lesson plan does not list all of the. And go and find David's email address. He is a great resource, and he loves talking about this stuff. I'm scrolling right now, just on my other screen.
It's great information, Shana. And I am going to put in the outreach lounge after this session, I'm going to put in the EPA-led curriculum, and I'll also include the information that you add here so that if people want to develop lead-free hunting programs, they have a place to start.
he is a great resource, and he loves talking about this stuff.
Why am I hearing this? All right. So this is, oh, it's larger than 500 characters. Okay, I will redo that.
So can you hear me? Okay, I'm still having technical issues. So I have the presentation going on my phone at the same time that we're part of the presentation, so that I can make sure that we're actually being heard and seen. But, and I wanted to add that I have talked to one of my colleagues at the Nez Perce Reservation, and they switched over from using lead shot to a copper shot. And the copper shot evidently doesn't impact the animal in the same way in a dispersion. And so therefore you don't get the lead shot dispersed throughout the meat. And so, you know, yes, it's suggested that there are ways to deal with it. The same thing with sinkers for fishing. There are different alternatives and all of that. The other thing I wanted to input is that here, I was provided the information on both the USB drive and in the book.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and so it's got all of this information that we're talking about in the book, and therefore it, as well as you can get it off the internet. So I thought I'd throw those things in while I still have connection. And then I'm going to go back off screen.
So it will not let me copy and paste. It keeps saying that everything is too long. So it's the Menominee tribe requires non-lead ammunition for any harvesting of animals for food. Flathead Indian Reservation tribes require the use of non-toxic shot for both waterfowl and upland bird hunting. Use of non-lead lures or sinkers for fishing. And you can actually find their I don't know what it's called. And then the Nez Perce tribe, located in north central Idaho. They started a regional dialogue on this topic, and then they've established a hunter stewardship and safety program that is centered around hunting. And I will reach out to David to make sure it's okay for me. Information, I'm pretty sure it will be. But if you go to the Module 1 lesson plan, all is included there. I'm going to keep going. So let's see. Yeah. And so over the last couple of years, as the working group learned a lot during the pilots of the curriculum and just in conversations with tribal representatives and community leaders, we kind of came up with a list of teaching strategies based on those conversations, based on those experiences. And the first one that I think is the most important is adjust each session so that you're capturing and incorporating personal and local observations and real life scenarios unique to your community. Make sure you're discussing the issues of importance to your community, and that you can use this to work toward identifying relevant solutions. Make these sessions as interactive as possible. Use the worksheets, use the handouts, include the demonstrations and activities that are mentioned. Incorporate large and small group discussion, but then also think of other activities that you could incorporate that your participants would enjoy. And customize the presentation slides. They're available as a PowerPoint for a reason. The idea is that you remove slides you're not going to use, but you can also edit them. For instance, if you have a photo that you would want to use in place of the photo I have on the screen, switch it out. Switch out the food photos, and etc. Make it work for you as an instructor, but then also make it work for your participants. And also just identify resources that might be important to your participants. So are there some brochures with information? Are there phone numbers? Does your tribe have a program that could help participants, whether it's, connecting them with the community, your community health department or tribal health department, connecting them with tribal housing authority? What are those resources they might need? And then also just one thing that we've learned is, just being very careful how you speak and interact, especially when talking about things like personal hygiene and cleaning, just because we all know that can be a little tough. And then, also, how do you want to promote attendance? How are you going to get the people that you've selected in the door? And I think the thing I heard the most in those pilots was just keep it simple. Like, come up with a plan on how you're going to get people to attend, work with your partners, work with the community, and get them as involved as possible so that they get excited and they want to come. And don't do this by yourself. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of content. You might lose your voice in the process. But bring in partners who can help present, who can just be there supporting you, who also just can provide additional information. And, make sure you're advertising this. One of the coolest suggestions I think I've heard was, I'm not sure where they were located, but one of the ways they said that they would advertise their sessions is they do announcements over like a loudspeaker in the community. And so that would be one. Other suggestions have been sending flyers home with students, advertising it in your local paper, on your local radio station, or working with other organizations or even businesses to get them to include your announcement, to include a flyer with their newsletter or weekly items that are getting sent home, such as paychecks. And those are just some very basic ideas. Not sure if someone wants to throw out another thing they've learned, especially if you were going to be doing this online. I just also wanted to share, we do have some upcoming webinars. I do realize one of those has already happened, but we are doing some what we call train the trainers. And so the idea is that any community leader who is looking to learn a little bit more about the curriculum, how to use it, how to modify it, what's really included. We're leading these 2-hour train the trainers, and they are approximately 2 hours to allow time for questions and answers, discussion, and a little bit of interaction. And many of the slides that we use today actually come from that train the trainer. So we did a very mini one today, but we are offering them. These are the specific times. So October 27th at 11 a.m., November 3rd at 10 a.m., November 9th at 12 p.m. And will have some dates, of course, in 2022. We also, if Region 9 wanted to have a very specific Region 9 train the trainer, that is also something that we could do. We're going to be doing that with Region 8 sometime in January. And the idea allowing it to have just more focused conversations about how to modify the curriculum. And then last night, or yesterday afternoon, we did Understanding Lead, so Module 1 online, and we're going to be doing that again next Thursday in honor or in recognition of National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. We're going to be doing an online version of Module 1, Understanding Lead. So I don't know if any other questions, comments, and I do have another slide that does have all of our contact information on it as well, and I realized I left off Lori's by accident. So I'm just going to put that on the screen. It's also in the, it's uploaded as well. So
Shayna, we don't have any more questions yet, although maybe our audience, we'll give our audience a little time to put some questions in. And
okay.
Maybe Lori, oh, perfect. You already did it. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. Thanks. Shayna, also, I do have a question. For the upcoming webinars, can we find registration information on the lead curriculum website that you posted in our chat?
Yes. So if you scroll to the bottom, it'll send you to right. Also the PDF, I think I saved it to where that lists them those as well. So I saved it quickly. So these dates should actually that would take you to the registration. And if you have any questions about those webinars or the upcoming ones, or if you are interested in one next year, we are going to keep doing these. The ones that we're currently doing, taking this wonderful resource that exists, and we're trying to make other folks aware of it. And so we're trying to get, other folks aware of this really great resource that was developed with and for tribes that they could also modify and use as well. I was going to try and switch back so I could show my contact information again. Here we go. But yeah, oh, there we go.
I have a question about, so I know we can find the information on the website, but what if we want to get the actual like hard copy book? Because for some people, that is an easier thing.
Yes. So we did mail out one copy, a copy. I don't have mine anymore because I gave it away, but we did mail out a hard copy of the book and a USB that Lori referenced to, am I still on? Oh no.
I can still see you and hear you.
Oh, okay. It looks like it was like telling me to join the studio. I apologize. So we did we did send out a hard copy and a USB to all of the federally recognized tribes last, I want to say November, December, after the curriculum was published. We do have additional copies. I have actually at my house, I have a whole stack of USB. And currently I do not have access to that stuff because they are in the process of moving our offices around. But we would have the ability to mail out an additional copy if that would be easier for folks to use. Because I know sometimes downloading large files can be an issue.
Great, thank you. So maybe in the outreach lounge, when I post the website, I'll also post, if it's okay with you, your email and just have people contact you if they want a USB or a book sometime in the future.
Yeah, just acknowledging that it will take a little while. Not even allowed in our building currently because of the moving of offices. But I think I have at least 2 boxes. So, but yeah, we could definitely mail those out.
I don't see any more questions coming in, but thank you guys all. This was an excellent presentation and it's a really important topic. And I think that you've done a really good job of like synthesizing how to, like how to bring this to all of our different communities. And I'm excited to do this, here at Paula. So thanks.
Thanks, Heidi. Thank you for having us present at the conference. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone who attended and to USCP with the tribal people to provide such a wonderful curriculum. I'm hoping that for other issues such as this, that we all work together again and come up with some very beautiful and useful materials. So thanks, and especially you, Shana, because you worked really hard on this.
Thank you, Lori. No, and thank you for allowing this opportunity for us to talk about the curriculum. It has been almost exactly a year. I think it might have actually been published officially on the 21st, 1 year ago. And because of COVID, not as many people know about it as we had hoped. We had hoped to do in all the regions and have these in-person conversations. So thank you so much for providing this space. I especially want to thank Lori for not only all of her help, all of the collaboration, but joining us today and really the non-EPA perspective, which is way more important than anything I have to say. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And, yeah. You have my email address. Amanda Hoff is actually the National Tribal Program Manager, the Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention. And so she is a great resource, not just for the curriculum, but for chemicals, so toxics and pesticides. And so you have our email addresses. Please reach out and look forward to hearing from folks. So,
Later, everyone.
Thank you.
bye.